stream right now, and I'm going to post some links. It'll take me a second to post some links. Let me view the event. I'm just going to spam the hell out of it.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can see with the phone.
What is that?
I don't see a screen. Are you sharing a screen?
No. I'm using the. What am I using for the camera? I'm not sure. Wait, who's over at Keolu right now?
There's some kids. It was just me. It was kind of wet, so I blew out the top part of the flatline.
So what I really need to make sure is that other people can hear you guys, because I'm not sure that I have this set up, but it should be. Let me just spam some people real quick.
I just want to say I don't think I can see videos, so if you can record it, I can check it out later.
What is that? What are you talking about?
If you're doing like any video presentation.
Oh no.
Oh, okay. It's just a conference call, kind of.
Yeah. I just want to make sure people can actually hear what we're doing. I'm just gonna spam everybody real quick.
I'm just gonna mute myself while everything gets set up, but I'm still listening here.
Okay. Oh, let's get Glenn Fricker in here, just because. Jack Winter. Alright, I think that's good. Tortured as many people as I can. Hold on a second. Oh, and of course I didn't start Reaper, so I can't do my recording. Let me do that real quick. So yeah, this is gonna be like a 5-minute intro, just the exact thing that Mike's always complaining about, but that's okay. Recent projects. 104. Okay, so I should be hearing you guys. Okay. So somebody who's on the stream,
Yep.
Okay, good. Was that Dave?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so it looks like everybody's here. So let me just save this. 105. So yeah, this is why I want to have that like event thing, so that it doesn't actually start recording to YouTube until the stream starts. And let me start recording this. And let me pull up my text file. Okay, so we are going. I might be changing levels. Hopefully I can get somebody to test and make sure that this thing's actually, that they can hear everybody.
Right.
But okay, so you're loud. Let me get you on my Discord. So if I right click you on Discord, I can turn up or down your volume. So let's see. Or maybe the volume's fine and Sean was real quiet, but that's okay. Okay, so let me get going in a second. So there's our screen, and I am gonna play my intro so people know it's on. All right, welcome to Dropping in a Pipeline Audio. This is number 105, and this is the Developers Roundtable, the aiXdsp Developer Roundtable. I think we have one more developer that's not here, but we got the rest of these guys. How do I turn this thing off? Okay, there we go. And so this is I'm doing a Discord again, so we'll see how well this works. And I got Dave here as our main developer over at aiXdsp, and I got Mark, who's doing development, and we got
yeah.
Sean, who's like our marketing social media guy. He was supposed to be over at Magic Island flat landing today, but he's in Kailua for some reason. So that's cool. So first thing I have today, and I'm gonna see if I can share my screen. Let me paste this and go. So this is a big part about, Sean always wants to know what's the difference, what sets this company apart, and this is the kind of thing that does. So let me see if I can share my screen here, or if I just turn off the Discord window. Let's see. So I'm just gonna go right window. Take me 1 second here. Discord video. There we go. Okay, so actually, I don't know if you guys can see my screen, but I guess it doesn't matter. Or I guess I could do a window. Anyway, this is a thread at the site who wants to change their name, so I'm not going to say their name, but where everybody goes for their marketing malarkey, and it's a thread called "Can you tell the difference art versus Great River?" And this is another one of those threads where somebody puts up a $20 or $40 whatever mic preamp against a couple $1,000 mic preamp, and puts up some examples and stuff. And just like the sound on sound test, which was a really good test, everybody guesses, and then when the results come out, they all make excuses, because it turns out that everybody picked the $29 art MP Tube Pro whatever thing, and didn't end up like in the $3,000 or $4,000 whatever dollar Great River. And what always happens is they'll start making excuses. So when if you guys aren't familiar with are you guys familiar with the James Randi $1 Million Challenge, the JREF
No.
Foundation?
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay, so one of the leaders in the skeptical movement, James Randi, he just died this year, actually, last year. He's had $1 million prize up for anybody who could prove supernatural, paranormal, anything. And he'd always get on Johnny Carson and like torment Sylvia Brown and people like that. And for some reason, one of the ones that really always came up was dowsing. These guys were just sure that dowsing worked. And so what they would do is you'd set up a test, but you had the person who was making the claim set it up so that they couldn't later on say, hey, your test was rigged or whatever. So you got them to set up the test. You guys agreed to everything, and then you tested it. Turned out that dowsing didn't work, and every single time they would come up with these just crazy excuses. And this thread is one of those ones where ahead of time they have 1,000,000% confidence that they can tell which one it is. And, you'll always hear from guys that they can tell which $1 million mic preamp something is, and it turns out that, no, they can't. But after it comes out, they all make the excuses like, well, it was probably recorded in a bad studio. When before the results came out, they're like, oh, it's a pretty good vocal or whatever. So there's always going to be a god of the gaps, and there's just no real way around it. But what we do, or what we should be doing as a company, and the reason that I get kicked off of forums so much is that I insist on evidence. And if it can be the gold standard of placebo-controlled, double-blinded, statistically significant results, that's the stuff I want. Not, hey, this thing costs more, so it must be better, or I heard this guy's uncle use this mic preamp, so it must be better. As we've shown how many times, if you're spending about $50 a channel on mic preamps today, chances are it's going to be just fine. You may not get enough gain, but noise-wise, the parameters that actually matter, noise, distortion, bandwidth, and frequency response, they're all going to be pretty damn good. So, shush. So that's how it is. I just wanted to show you guys that, but since I forgot that I can't really show you my screen, I guess it doesn't matter. So, let's see.
I can see it on the screen.
Oh, okay. How could you see it on the screen?
Well,
So-
I just pulled up the YouTube channel.
Okay.
At the same time. Yeah.
So one of the things I was starting to do last night, I began using Restream, as in the Reaper plugin, not not the service restream, which I'm also using, but it's a way that Reaper, or actually it's a replug, so you can use it in anything that'll run VST on Windows. It will send audio out a network, and in OBS, in my broadcasting software, I can put a plugin in that'll accept a network audio. So I was trying that last night. There's some little problems with it, but that's pretty interesting that thing works. We should be developing something much better than that, but the trouble with using reroute that you'll see most people recommending is if your DAW crashes, OBS or your streaming software will still have control of that ASIO driver, and you'll have to turn off your streaming software in order for your DAW to get those drivers back. So this restream could be a smart thing. It seems kind of finicky to me. Like one time it worked with your standard 127 dot whatever, and then the other times it wanted a specific broadcast address, and without anything changing on my network. So who knows? Let's see, what else do I have in here? Okay, so for you guys, Dave and Mark, man, we're having, of course, everybody has this issue, but GUI layouts, what a pain in the ass, man. So I'm still using SkinMan to kind of push stuff around, but is there something newer than SkinMan that people actually use? Like, does the Juice GUI thing actually work for testing things?
You mean like the GUI builder that's in the producer, or like
yeah?
I know Daniel on a different Discord has one that'll like automatically populate it, but it's always like if you're building a full featured product, you're gonna have more specific needs. The producer one also just doesn't work. They say that it's deprecated. It's still in it, but they tell you not to use it. Yeah. So we don't use that.
So SkinMan I have a lot of trouble with because well, first of all, I guess it's Windows only, which isn't a problem for sane people, but there are a lot of Mac users out there. But if you, I don't know how to use the line tools. Like it uses curves, and I don't even know how it works. So maybe someday I could get Jonathan or somebody to show it to me. But so how are you guys? What do? Do you draw it on a piece of paper, and what the hell are you supposed to do?
Well, I mean, you've seen I've sent you just whiteboard drawings before.
Yeah.
And then for me, like if we're just doing a prototype, then I just like lay it out geometrically in the code, I guess, and just have it like space itself kind of thing, hopefully. And then we've tried with the reverb. I did like on Draw.io, I did some diagrams with that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's usually just getting it in there and seeing how you're able to lay things out sensibly. Like in code, I mean, because it always comes back to that. So I don't know if Mark, it's the same for you, but it's sometimes easier to you're just working in that if you have a general idea where stuff's supposed to go.
Yeah, totally. There's a sort of like heaving process where I sort of just like get everything and anything up onto the screen.
Yeah.
And then once it's up there, moving things around is relatively simple. Or at least I can sort of see like a very rough version of what it's supposed to look like. And then like the adjustments to the details sort of fall into place.
And I talked to Mark about hopefully building some things for us where we could actually just take things, drag it, and it'll spit out some like positioning code for us to just then copy in, some kind of like debug view where we can move things around. But we don't have that right now, so
that's smart.
Something for the future. Yeah.
With SkinMan, it's like it makes like you can group shapes and stuff, so I can pretty easily drag it and draw around. But because I don't know how to use masking tools and line tools and stuff, I end up having to make pictures in another program, then drop the picture in. And but I don't know if you guys ever got a chance to use Knobman. I think there's an online version, and that one will like animate your knobs and everything. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I had seen that. That was something I was looking at when I was first looking at building stuff. But then by the time we started building things for real, we had, like Jonathan gives us a film strip already made. So I never actually learned how to make that kind of thing myself, I guess.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. Wait, Mark, are you still on Kauai?
I am, yeah, actually. So I just moved to the other side of the island for a couple of days, but I have official flights booked home. For the 3rd. It's not going home right away, but I'm back to the mainland on the 3rd. So
Oh, cool.
back on regular time.
Yeah. I spent a lot of my real young days on Kauai. Like if you go to, there's parts of that island where it's all like my Portuguese side of the family is kind of everywhere.
Oh, cool.
And let's see. So, I think one of these things, like you'll see in the forums all the time, people are just, they're getting this weird pedantic battle about UI versus UX and stuff. And I think that's where we're getting nailed, right? Like I understand when I like to use something, but I don't know. I don't know how to prescribe how that's supposed to go. But I really don't like to see this crazy like corporatocracy thing where these guys will just so strongly divide these two terms, and it gets in the weirdest flame wars and forums where people actually end up getting muted, or banned for a little while by the admins, and you're like, what in the world? Why are you guys so crazy about this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big distinction between just like the visual design of it, which is like something that Jonathan is more giving to us, of just like basically like the paint over top of it, whereas like UX, what people consider to be like the flow of how you're doing things in it, like these buttons are hidden here, and this kind of stuff, which I would like to spend more time on with our stuff.
Yeah, I think we got
getting that.
I got spoiled early on because of White Tie. He kind of just did them both. They looked beautiful, right, and they worked real well. See what JVM is. I wonder if there's a kind of memory of GUI. I wonder. Could be. Like if you remember a layout before you even open the plugin, I'm sure there is. A lot of us started on Vegas. A lot of Reaper users who've been using things since the beginning, they will definitely remember the Vegas influence on this. And it's like when you open anything, you kind of expect to see stuff laid out the way it is on there. You expect that if you if you scroll your mouse wheel, that it's going to zoom in or zoom out. And if it doesn't, you're really confused. So I'm sure. Maybe if it's not a memory, maybe it's an instinct that you actually gain from plugins or DAWs or the way your user interface works. Like I think like on a video game, right? Just if it's going to be a first-person shooter, you're probably going to jump to the W, A, S, and D keys, right? And it's going to work. So,
I feel like there's. Wait, Mark Reed saying something?
Oh no, people talk about like intuitive layouts for GUIs, and that, I think what they're sort of saying is like this, something can be laid out in a way that makes sense, but also in a way that's just familiar.
Yeah.
That feels like the way that something else that they've used is laid out. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot that like for me, it's difficult to think of some of those things because when you're building it the whole time, you just know where everything is because you've had to like painstakingly put it in place and hook it all up. And then I hand it to you, and then talking about the reverb, there were some functions that you didn't even know were there that like were big intended things. I thought they were obvious, but it's about like making it clear, I guess. So we have to have more back and forth about that, I think.
That's how it is in mixes. You're so used to hearing a certain sound, you may have it really quiet. You still hear it because it's still there, but nobody else is going to hear if they didn't hear it the whole time that you were working on it. So that is something to worry about. But, I always think about when people talk about intuitive designs, like there's a really goofball fight. Actually, if you go to the Reaper forum, you'll see this come up every once in a while, and not that long of a while either. That you'll get a bunch of guys saying that Reaper is the most intuitive DAW they've ever used. Then you'll get a whole bunch of guys starting threads that say Reaper is the most unintuitive DAW. It's got the steepest learning curve out of anything. And the crazy thing is how subjective this can be. And like Jason says, it's very subjective. But the one thing that I really noticed is that if I have little kids over here at the school, and they can be up and running. In an hour, they're decently proficient where they can pick which inputs they're using. They can do some basic editing, and they can do some basic mixing. And at the beginning of Reaper, we were making the joke that it's the official DAW of the AARP because everybody who was using it was like these old people, and they didn't like any of the DAWs because it didn't feel like tape and a razor blade and a soldering iron and a screwdriver to them. But Reaper did, and so they just jumped in and started using it. So guys that were too old to learn how to use computers, people who were super young and just very now getting used to using computers, or people who were teenagers but had no previous interest in using computers or whatever, or never use a DAW anyway, they could just use it with no problem. But people who were used to another DAW, that's where things got really ugly. Like most DAWs, you have to change mouse tools a lot, or you did back in the day, like back in 2005 or what. I don't know how it is anymore. But you had like a move tool, a delete tool, a cut tool, a levels tool or something like that, and they would actually have more trouble because they couldn't switch tools, and that was kind of an interesting thing. So it really is super subjective, you know. So you never know what's going to be intuitive for somebody and what's not.
Yeah, I think that once you, especially with a DAW where there's like so much that you have to be able to do in it, like once you learn one, I feel like it kind of just ruins you for other ones. Like I learned on Logic and Bit of Reason and Pro Tools, and like I would think like, oh, I'm used to using all these kind of programs, but when we first started, we had to open up these like sound for or like I don't even remember the names of them, but things like Cubase and some other DAWs that we had to open just to debug our builds in it. And I remember you and I both like, it's just like, how do I add a track to this thing? Like I just want to add a track. Where is it?
All thumbs.
You know. Yeah.
But you know, one of the things we did early on with Reaper was counting how many clicks you had to do to get someplace. And so the other guys would be using their DAWs and they say, well, we can do it in 11 on this one. So we're like, okay, what do we do to knock that down by even just one less than the other guys? Like that was a big deal to us. So technically you could probably do it in less clicks, but you know, a lot of those had to do with like modifiers and, you know, special things like how you can, you know, go in there and make your own macros and everything. So this whole GUI user experience, whatever thing, this is just a nightmare. And I keep thinking we can hand it off to somebody, you know, but it keeps ending up being...
Yeah, and no, just what you were saying about like, even with the, I think the dynamic EQ we were talking, I think we added like mouse wheel stuff and there's some shift controls and like all that stuff is really great. But then the problem is that the user then has to like look at the manual. Like they're going to have to look and see that there are hotkeys and things like that. So it's like, I don't know, it'd be nice to make everything like have all these dual functions, but then you have to somehow display that even exists and stuff. And
well, luckily,
which, you know, God.
Sean's supposed to be writing manuals, right? Sean, you ready to write some manuals? Let's see, we got to check if he's actually paying attention. Oh man, he's about to lose his paycheck for this week. Where are you at, Sean?
I'm here. I just had to find the button.
Are you ready to write some manuals?
Yeah, as soon as I can.
Are you ready to turn on your camera and do some manuals?
Right now?
Some live writing.
I think he's at the skate park. That's why. So.
Yeah, I'm not at home right now.
You're not what?
I'm not at home. I'm listening to my phone.
Yeah, that's what I said. Turn on your phone camera and do some manuals.
Now I get it.
I think he's. Yeah. Are you at Keolu?
Located to a lookout, so I could be in the shade in my car and not be burned up.
Which lookout are you at? That sort of has phone service.
I'm by boat ramps.
Well, that's a sucky. Yeah, that doesn't sound like very good reception.
Is it bad? I can hear you guys fine. I don't know.
Okay. That's okay. Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing. So you could add a lot of like hotkeys and things like that, but you do have to make sure that they know they're there, and then they have to work in every single DAW. That's the other ugly part. And then the other thing is if we ever go to the iOS stuff like we actually have to do, that kind of thing becomes really difficult because you can't just put your mouse over it and not click, you know?
Yeah.
Which
I
is
like gestures and things and all that.
Yeah, which is, you know, the excuse that the guitar amp modeling people have been using all these years when they're doing the iPhone things, but there's got to be a way to make some of this quality of life stuff work. All right, well, I finally got to run the Waves SSL compressor against the SSL compressor, and the SSL bus compressor plugin, the one that was last week they had for $50 or whatever, it and Cytomix the glue come out to be like exactly the same. Like they have like a weird kind of attack. Like it does most of the attack right away, and then it takes a while to get to the rest of it, and then it takes a real long time to get to the rest of that. So maybe this is a 2-stage attack or something. The Waves one just has like a pretty quick attack, and then it slowly gets to the end. And the release, though, looked pretty much the same on the Waves one and the SSL one. And the really neat thing was, to me, the Waves knee was like, it was pretty straight. I don't even know if it was curved at all, but SSL had what we used to call blow-by on our old compressors, where after the gain got past a certain amount, it's the gain, the ratio would actually go down. Like it would be 4-to-1 for most, like it'd be 2-to-1, then 3-to-1, 4-to-1, whatever. And then after a lot of gain, it would actually be back to like 3-to-1 or whatever.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've always wondered why, you know, it doesn't seem like there's like, it seems like all the compressions have like a linear like ratio factor. I've never seen a compressor that have some like different sort of compression curves, and I wonder if that would be like a useful thing or just sort of like a dumb like nerds thing to play with.
Well, some of the old ones, like you would have the impression of extreme volume when it got past what the compressor could do, you know, which is
right.
I think I'm not really sure how the Varimu ones work exactly, but I think they can only do so much for so long.
Right.
So that might be the same sort of thing. But seeing the knee on the Waves was interesting. It may, I don't know. It seems to like they feel the same. Like when you put it on a drum track, they kind of make the same kind of thing. So I don't know. Do we have to make a different mode? Like if we wanted to be able to exactly mirror that SSL, but not mess up the rest of the compressor, like would you have to have like a bus mode switch that you could actually do where it would change behavior?
You mean versus like being some gradual smooth control?
Well, I mean like the way our compressor works right now,
yeah,
it doesn't do that, whatever that attack is, that at least that
right.
you can see in Plugin Doctor. And so I'm you know, with Fab. Okay, here's the other thing. So I put Fabfilter's bus compressor up against that SSL. It looks like the Waves one. It doesn't look like the glue, and it doesn't look like the SSL one. And it has all these different modes. But if you put the different modes in Plugin Doctor, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what the hell I'm looking for, but they don't seem all that different. And
right.
I wonder if we could have two different modes. One that acts like that SSL thing, and another one that's acts like it does right now. Yeah. Well, what's going on? Oh, hold on one second.
Sticks, drumsticks.
There should be tons in there.
Yeah,
They're all broken, but yeah, I don't have any in here.
okay.
All right, so sorry about that. Yeah, somebody forgot their drumsticks. But yeah, there's. I guess we might need
I think it'd be worth
explore
trying something like that.
Yeah. And the other thing, of course, I want to be able to right-click the knobs and change the attack and release curves from logarithmic to linear to anti-log or whatever.
Right.
Hopefully that's doable.
Yeah.
I know that sounds ugly, but I think that could cover a lot of what we're trying to get to. But
no, that's cool. Are there plugins like which Well, are there plugins that have different attack and release curves like that on a compressor?
I
Actually,
think
haven't seen
so. There's like this weird JS one in Reaper, the that you can kind of draw
Yeah.
your own stuff into.
Oh,
Does it let you change the attack versus the like differently than the release, or is it like you're setting just?
I'm trying to remember. I think so. Maybe Jason might know if he's still listening. Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. I swear there was like maybe it was even a Sonic Foundry like thing in SoundForge that wasn't even real time that you could change this kind of thing. I swear there's some compressors that let you change this sort of thing, but if not, there should be. Oh yeah, okay, Jason. So like, can you remember a compressor that lets you change the style of the attack and the release? Oh yeah, Wavehammer was like their limiter one. But I swear there was. Maybe I'm was just imagining it long ago, but well, maybe we'll be blazing some trails. So let's see what else we got. So plugin doc, right? I wrote to DDMF and asked if we could possibly get some different colors for the different.
It's so similar. I don't.
Yeah, you can't see
I don't know why
which
they
one
would
is
do
doing
that.
what.
Yeah.
And I can't find a way to bypass or mute one of the two plugins either. Hopefully they're adding that. But he said there's no way to change the colors right now, but they'll look into it. And I had a weird thing where when I tried to use the Waves VST3 version of the SSL compressor, it wouldn't compress. The gain would work. I think one of the other controls would work, but the compressor wouldn't work. Neither would the compressor meter. And then when I put the VST2 version in, it worked. And so, a couple shows back when I was asking you guys to sign that petition about VST2, and you guys just about banned me off the Reaper users group on Facebook. This is why, because we still need VST2 to get stuff working half the time, man. Forbidding newer developers from using it just seems ridiculous. And the fact that you guys would fight against making your lives better just to show that you're smart and calling all the developers lazy or whatever. It's just another one of those things, which is why I am still fighting for the soul of Reaper across social media, because it has become sadly tainted by idiots. But I won't get too far into there. But Reaper does have a gain reduction scope that I saw Jonathan bit by bit using that maybe that because one of our developers is on Linux, and Reaper runs on Linux, so I guess he could use that thing instead. But he had some videos up, and you have to record the output in order to really get a look at it. It's not like a real-time scope as well, but yeah, it looked good. Let's see what else I got here. Oh, it used to be so easy to get beta testers, but man, I barely hear anything from our beta guys. Like, are they just betas for real? I mean, it used to be they would fight for position to get in that beta testing list, and maybe we're not interesting them or something. But we should have had. We're having a little crashing problem that I would have thought our beta testers would have seen, and yeah,
That's been helpful.
Sigma. What in the world? So there's always those plugins where in the back of your mind you're like, I don't know if I want to use this plugin because it might crash. And you never want to be in that position. So what in the world? What's going on with the betas right now? What's the theory that this thing might be crashing for?
So when I updated the meters, so we put something in. I had to put something in so that like it wouldn't miss any peaks, and it was like falling at the right rate. And then I also did some stuff internally, so it was just like, I guess, more robust with that. Because before, the way that I was like sampling the signal, it would happen just periodically, and it wouldn't have any knowledge of like if any kind of peak was missed. It wouldn't hold that information. So right now, what happens when you open up the editor, it actually creates new listeners and hooks them up, and it like internally the object that's sampling the gain value, it has a list of listeners basically, and there's something happening when it's first connecting that sometimes it's basically firing to something that's not there, and that's what's causing a crash. So I just have to go in and add, it's called like a bailout checker, I think, is what's going to fix this. Okay. And that'll hopefully be the end of that.
You know, one of the plugins like this, not in beta, it's been out for years and years and years, is well, just pretty much everything Positive Grid makes. So like lots of times it'll work just fine, but you know when you're opening up the GUI for it, that's when it's likely to crash and take your project out. And it's the weirdest thing. Like, you know, we talked about this on the show before, just how much incredible amount of hash that this particular plugin, there's other ones that do the same thing, add to the project file, just absolutely insane amounts. So, but that's actually not part of opening the GUI. It's already there. And it runs just fine in the background. I mean, as fine as it's gonna with something that eats that much up. But when you're opening up that window, that's when that thing just decides every once in a while, oh, I'm just gonna crash. And you're like, you know, you had how many years to work on this thing, and it still has this exact same problem. And there's, you know, back in the day when you had SynthEdit and SynthMaker, you kind of expected that they were gonna crash on you like that, but man, it's just it's scary and nerve-wracking and frustrating. And if there's any way to make that not possible, you know, Reaper has a bunch of things that should keep it from letting it crash, but that usually has to do with 32-bit plugins. I'm not sure if we can actually arm this stuff for 64-bit. That'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, whenever something like that happens, that's always like top of my list to go root out what it is, because like you said, it just like, you just don't want to open the thing if it's going to do that to you. You don't want to use it in any project or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's mostly just this change was kind of a big one, and just need more people running it and seeing it crashing, because you were using it for a while and it wasn't doing it. So it's
yeah.
So
yeah, and that's interesting, that kind of because the project that it was crashing on before, I opened it up, ran the new one, and it would not crash regardless. I was using it, opening it up, everything was fine, and then in this newer project, it decided it wants to crash. So, you know, one of the things that's always been super difficult is repros. If you don't have a repro, it's really hard for the developer to do anything. And so I'd always be this like bleeding edge person. I just whatever was out, I would use it. And, you know, the developers would always yell at me for it, but I was like, well, you know, somebody needs to run this stuff. And so I'd just be crashing stuff left and right and have no idea what it was. So I got in the habit of really focusing on changing one thing at a time. And even then, you know, just like this one, there may or may not be a repro for that I can actually point to. Luckily with this one, I got to the point where I could actually film it. But sometimes these things are just, like right now, my car, man, my backup camera doesn't show up in my radio, but it shows up in the other display every once in a while. But anytime I take it back to the alarm shop, it shows right up in the backup camera just fine. So it's one of those things, man. If you got a repro, it's good, but if it's intermittent, holy crap, it's hard to fix.
Yeah, and that's why using stuff like that plugin val is good, because it'll just like open it up a bunch of times and like run all these simulated tests of just doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, what is that?
Which
thing?
I was able to do, and I think the same people that make Juice made that, I think. But basically, it just, you set like a level of how strict you want the test to be. Like if you want to test like really bizarre things that no DAW would ever actually do, you can do that. Yeah, so I ran it through that, and I was able to get similar looking crashes out of a multi-band compressor, which is good. And I think specifically I've tracked it down to, because the other thing that the new meters do is that if it changes the number of channels, it'll fix the meter so that it'll display like a mono signal on left and right.
Oh, good.
Which ours didn't do that before. If you changed it in the middle of it and before you were listening to stereo, and then you switch to mono, you would just only see the left meter. So I wanted to fix that problem also. So there's like in that messaging, something is like just misfiring. And so, but yeah, plugin val gave me like the stack trace and where it was. And so hopefully I can get rid of that.
And can you run plugin val on Windows?
Yeah, I used to do that a lot more, and then just recently we've been working on these 3 products, and it's more about getting them feature complete. But yeah, and it's good to run them on Windows too, because versus Mac, which is where I usually work, just because you'll just see completely different issues, which are always a nice surprise.
And you got a newer setup now, like
yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, so. We're I have the M1 MacBook.
Oh wow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and
how is that, Dave?
It's very fast, really nice. We're gonna see how many. I've only had it a couple days, so we're gonna see what kind of compatibility issues it's gonna run into. I already had to reboot it in like security mode and allow this program Loopback that basically does that kind of inter app audio stuff. I had to like go in and unlock security extensions for that. So we'll see. But in general, it's running really well. And also building our plugins for M1 was super easy, which I was happy to find out. Basically just switch one thing and hit build, and they work on both now.
Oh, good.
That's cool. A friend of mine like got one of the pre M1 like new MacBook Pro, like fully loaded, etc. And he does a lot of music production, recording, etc. And he was having a ton of problems with like Logic crashing and freezing on that machine. So I'm like hoping that kind of stuff is resolved for the M1. He's like, it's not a performance issue. It's like it's an issue where the software just doesn't run well on the machine.
Yeah, well, at least for compiling, the performance is like amazing. I've gone from like 5 to 10 minutes to recompile to like under a minute.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing. Yeah. Really great.
Yeah, the DawBench podcast was talking about. He's like, yes, M1's really fast, but it doesn't run anything, so I don't care. Oh wait, it runs Reaper, but I don't care. I was like, okay,
right.
But somebody on his forum, or what was it? I think it was on his forum, was showing that Microsoft had gotten Parallels or Boot Camp or whatever working on the M1,
mm-hmm.
and so the Windows should be running pretty well on M1 by now.
Yeah.
And then Scott Stillwell got a machine with it, and his stuff is running on there as far as I know now. So I guess NVIDIA is going to be making one of their own too. Like, man, if this turns into processor wars again, that'd be nice. Maybe not for us, but it'd be nice for the consumers.
Yeah. Intel would actually make something new and better, as opposed to just like tiny incremental.
That's what they were saying on DawBench. The AMD strategy is just to add more cores to stuff, even though it's not really making most of their low latency plugin performance any better. But Intel's thing is to slowly get a little bit faster. But they've got a big challenge in front of them.
Yeah.
One of the things, I wonder if you guys can tell me more about this. One of the performance metrics that I always check with plugins is in Reaper's performance meter. If you actually right-click it and you can choose more parameters to add, and one of them is the RT CPU, which I'm assuming is real-time CPU, and the other one is RT longest block. And I don't really know what these things do, but I've noticed that when these things go up, these are the real indicators. The CPU, Reaper CPU can go over 100% for some reason, and you can run just fine. But RT CPU, as it goes near a quarter of your CPU, things get really scary. And RT longest block, if it ever goes above the your buffer size, really ugly things can happen. Sometimes they don't, but most of the time they do. And so I was showing Alex Audio Assault's latest amps that they were running like a third of the RT CPU as the as bias effects, which can make a lot of trouble. And the Audio Assault ones weren't making any trouble. And people were commenting that, man, that's a lot of CPU use. And I'm like, well, this is RT CPU. This is different. The other CPU reading was like less than 1%. I think it was like 0.01 or 0.1. So what the hell is RT CPU versus CPU? You know.
So that would probably be real-time CPU. So like when you're building a plugin, you have the real-time thread, which is where all the audio processing happens, and then you have like the message thread or event thread. And so the RT CPU, I'm sure, is just measuring whatever Reaper has going on, like in its audio processing thread. But then the RT longest block, I'm gonna guess, is how long it takes for it to, return the buffer that it's given. So that's why, if it gets up to the size of your buffer, then you're gonna have problems like dropouts or things like that, because it's taking too long to actually fill it with samples or do whatever it has to do to those samples, and then give it back to the next thing in the chain.
Yeah, that one was always, people are like, why are you even looking at that? It doesn't even show in the regular performance meter. But I just, over time, I realized that this is, when this thing goes above a certain amount, percentage-wise, then that's when things get ugly. I mean, never mind, yeah, if the RT longest block goes over, for sure it's going to be nasty. But that RT CPU use mattered. So you'd have like Reaper saying it was using like 1% of your CPU, and yet things were making all kinds of trouble. And you're like, I don't know what that's about. But you'd look at that and you'd see it above like 25%, and you're like, okay, well, that
I would think that's what that would be. RT being real time. But I mean, we had the issue with the multiband gate where the RT CPU was like fine, but then it was just using crazy amounts of CPU on max. And like it wouldn't affect the audio processing, but like the whole DAW would become sluggish because it was just clogging up the event thread for like GUI stuff, which thankfully we fixed.
And so that
RT
one
is what I would be looking at. That would be my main concern, because that's making sure everything's being processed in time, and you're not going to have any clicks or anything like that.
Cool. Let's make sure you don't forget the. Hopefully, you can add that transient whatever, like the guy was talking about for the key.
Oh yeah,
and that sounds smart. If that works, I still don't really understand how transient modelers work and stuff, but his video made it look like it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, when they mentioned that, I went and tried to find what I could about it, and it looked pretty reasonable to implement. We just have to. I'm looking forward to releasing some of these things and being able to spend some more time on our products and updating them and putting in all the ideas that we come up with, stuff like that, fun stuff basically.
Well, I got some real DSP questions for you guys, and I don't even know if I know how to ask the question, but so we're talking about like things like Kemper's, the Kemper profiling amplifier and things like that. And I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s when the rack units were first coming out, and you had the guitar ones anyway, and you had the digital amplifier modeling things like the Rocktron Pro Gap and some of the Digitech stuff. And they would make a big deal about showing their waveforms, and the waveforms of these distortions looked different than each other. They a lot of them were asymmetrical, and they just had a different look. Allegedly, they're passing the same signal through, but they sure had a different look to them. Not just the amount of the tops getting rounded off or whatever, but the harmonics that these things were making. But when I was just messing around, I was like, I was trying to see what kind of distortion was coming out of the Intuition Compressor's clipper, and all of a sudden that distortion sounded pretty much the same as any guitar distortion plugin or amplifier that I ever really played with. And I wonder, is the nature of distortion pretty much the same, even though these things seem to look so different than me? And I know that there's asymmetrical clippers out there. If you play with Scott Stillwell's Bad Bus Mojo, you can draw your own distortion, like what it's going to do on the top and what it's going to do on the bottom and all that stuff. And it sure sounded different, but none of it sounds like a guitar amp, but this one did. So is distortion, and the reason that these things work so well is that they're pretty much just copying the EQs of each other, or what the hell's going on with the guitar distortion?
I mean, I think it depends on, especially like what kind of sound you're going for. Like, especially I remember from the video that you had, it was like you had it like cranked, so it was just like a really high gain sound, which if you're putting in so much in the tops and bottoms off, you're getting like square wave. I feel like a lot of things are going to sound similar, but the soft clipper that we put in there, is one that's like commonly used for like quote unquote like tube amp response. It has like a smooth as it approaches being clipped, it's a smoother clipping, I guess. Not even clipping, but like wave shaping. So yeah, I mean, I think the harder things to reproduce might be like the softer gain sounds. That might be where you might hear more of a difference.
Yeah, that's usually
but
what,
if you're gonna
what people
crank
say,
things,
but...
it's like, you know, yeah. But if you're gonna just crank things, then it's easy to get them sounding similar. Yeah.
But one of the big things that I was wondering about, like on the Kemper, was, is it actually modeling that? So just I know that distortion is inherently nonlinear, but there's linear nonlinear and there's nonlinear nonlinear, and I know that sounds weird, but in general, if you give it more distortion, it's going to get more distorted, even though that's nonlinear sounds. It kind of operates along a certain spectrum of distortion. And so I was wondering, does the Kemper actually model what you're doing? I know that you give it different levels, but the way it looks like that Synthefx patent maybe, where it's more dynamic convolution, where you got an EQ measurement at this thing and an EQ measurement at that thing, and the distortion's actually coming from somewhere else. And then you're really just interpolating between the different EQ differences between the different levels depending on how much gain is coming in. So are you really modeling, like, could you throw a compressor in there and actually get the actual compressor curve out of it, assuming that the compressor actually acts so wacky the way all the people always talk about on forums and stuff, where in reality compressors pretty much act exactly how you'd expect them to act? But
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't even know how to ask the question, but it's like, is it actually modeling the distortion, or what's going on here?
Yeah, so you've heard like the test signals that they like play through it when you're profiling that with that thing.
Yeah,
it does like all these like different So I don't know, obviously. I would love to find out, but like one thing I always wanted to do is run like a fuzz factory, run the signal through a fuzz factory or something, so you get like Velcro-y fuzz and see if the Kemper amp is able to like what it does with that. Those gated sounds, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, like let's say you had a diode clipper, and so you're only clipping one half of the waveform. What's it going to do? Is it going to give you back a waveform that's only clipped on one half, or what?
Yeah, we're just gonna have to get one and test. But yeah, it's definitely it seems like it's different than obviously just I can't talk about that. But just like impulse responses and stuff like that. It seems more dynamic than that kind of thing. So I don't know if they're just blending it, and you think they're just like applying a similar kind of soft distortion to it or something.
I think that the distortion. I think that you, just like bias, you would pick an amp that's kind of similar. Whereas bias only, I mean, they do give you different levels and stuff, but as far as I know, bias isn't doing anything super complicated more than EQ matching. But I think that the Kemper might be taking impulses at different levels, and obviously you can't get every single level, so it's probably not all that many of them, and interpolating.
Yeah, I mean, it sweeps through. Yeah, it does sweep through like different levels as it's doing it, so that would make sense.
And there's other companies doing similar things right now, and when I asked them, is this actually modeling the distortion curve, the wave shape itself, I never really get good answers out of them. So I wonder, TH, the Overloud guys, really the guys who deserve all the credit for the original plug-in amplifier simulators anyway, when they were, I think it's the same guys that did the Overloud stuff, the original GU-wireless, the original plugins that would let you really sound like a Marshall 900. I mean, that I kind of stopped miking amps after those things came out if I could help it. It wasn't perfect. And actually, I did an experiment way later on where I kept telling the Amplitube guys, and actually amp modeling guys in general, that they never seem to distort all the way like a real amp would. Like if I put a pedal in front of this and just crank the hell out of it, it makes like square wave, just horrible screechy high harmonics and all kinds of things. And I did a couple of videos where I showed putting multiple instances of amplitude in a row, and it didn't really get any more distorted. It got a little bit more noisy, but it never really got more distorted. And so I always wondered, is there some kind of just a basic wave shaper that they throw on things and it just doesn't change any? And this isn't, obviously this isn't what's going on with Bias or Kemper or with the overloud thing. But I think overloud, they say they have a profile player now, so they're probably doing something very similar to the Kemper, but they won't let you do it yourself, as far as I know. But they will let you buy the profiles. But yeah, it's interesting to. I really wonder about this type of DSP, and if we got a Kemper and I want to feed it a diode clipper and I want to feed it a compressor and see what happens,
Yeah, Jacob could be a good person to ask about this. I can see what he thinks.
Oh, yeah, it looks like Jason. Are you? Oh yeah, okay. So he has Slate THU, and so that's the overloud thing, the newest version, I think. And yeah, he had some demo videos that sounded, they sounded like you think they're supposed to sound. But as much as people make fun of me for it, to me, Bias sounds like the way it's supposed to sound. I'm perfectly happy with it. I've been trying Alex's new Audio Assault ones, and I like them too. But I've been happy for a long time. But there's, it seems like around 2012, 2013 or so, they just started getting to the point where they would make the kind of treble response I'd expect. But reverbs still don't. But hopefully we're fixing that. But that was a big thing with me for the guitar stuff, was that they just wouldn't distort. Like, they wouldn't keep distorting. They kind of still don't to me. But I think maybe that's EQ. Yeah, and see, like Jason's saying, so for some reason they all just sound kind of different. And that's the thing. Like, Line 6, their distortions, even on the Helix and whatever, there's a certain type of sound to them. I bought a Line 6 Firehawk effects so that the kids could take those out on shows, and they won't really work because they have the exact same problem that so many devices have, that when you're taking a modeler out there, you need one type of output that goes to a guitar amp, because that guitar amp's got a 12-inch speaker, and you need another type of output that has a speaker simulator on it that goes out to the PA system. And if they don't have both of those things, it's a pain. And so many plugins don't, and so many iOS guitar amps don't. And anyway, I digress. That thing has a certain flavor of distortion. No matter what you do to it, there's like it busts up at the bottom, just like the overloud stuff does. And by busting up at the bottom, I don't mean EQ wise. I mean like the softer part of the signal there's like a grit to it no matter what. And then there's this other one I call like the chippy sound, and you'll hear let's see, S-Gear has, and the neural stuff seems to have, where like there's this weird pick chip kind of noise that they make, and it's it's the weirdest thing. Like, they do have different flavors of distortion, and I just wonder, can that really just be EQ? It doesn't seem like it. It seems like they're like it's doing something, like it's generating a different type of harmonics at different places. And to me, I think Bias has just always been the smoothest for me. But yeah, what the hell is the nature of distortion? What's the sound of one hand clapping kind of thing?
I'll see you there.
So yeah, I would love to know how distortion works and why different distortion sounds different than each other. We like, people hold up this old tube Holy Grail thing, and then they didn't realize how many transistors their tube amp had in their input stage. So I wouldn't put it down to just one kind of topology or something, but and not that you can't make it digitally if it exists in the real world. We just need the right simulators, if that's even the goal. Like, I always question, what is this ancient stuff really even the goal, or just I just want it to sound good? I'm happier with Bias than any amp I've ever had. Okay, so Jason says he found a Rockman emulation and it sounded awesome. I would love to. I really want the Rockman chorus. Like, that is my dream chorus. I just loved that chorus. But I wonder, back in the day, it was like my first piece of rack gear Did I just love it because it was my first piece of rack gear and it really sounded good and I can't get a chorus that sounds like that? Or was it just a piece of crap and every other chorus I have sounds exactly like it? I don't know anymore. But if you got a Rock Band emulation and it's got the chorus, I would love to hear it. But I'd love to hear the distortion one too. But I remember Ed Rye made that VST suck knob, and you put it on your track, and if you turned up the knob, it would play a waveform of more than a feeling. But that's not the kind of Rock Band emulation that I really want to find. But yeah, I'd love for everybody to get more figuring out, okay, why is the SSL bus compressor act different than these other compressors, and what the hell makes distortion distort, you know?
Yeah, I mean, all this kind of takes a lot of measurements and stuff.
Yeah.
What it comes down to, I think.
Well, we got the stuff over here to measure. I don't have a Kemper, but
yeah,
I think I could borrow one down here without much trouble. Well, I should do that. And I just got to find something that's either make a diode clipper or just find, if you know of a pedal that actually is just like an asymmetrical diode clipper.
Right.
I'll see if I can find it and borrow that too. I think that's really all I had, because tomorrow, hopefully, I'm going to be talking to Ethan Weiner and get some good content for next week's thing. So I don't know if you guys got any stuff to add. I'm hoping that like all the crazy channels that I watch on YouTube, like Drunken Peasants and stuff, where it's just a round table of people, we could probably do something more like this and get a lot more viewers and things, and a lot more interesting stuff, because usually it's just me ranting about how some idiot manufacturer made a claim that they can't possibly back up about a piece of technology that can't possibly do what they said it did, and a measurement that they could easily measure, but they refuse to. That's usually what these shows are. So I'd love to do more different stuff than that.
Yeah. Well, I would just say that if you're using our stuff and you've let us know about an issue that there is, we have them all. We're just, dying to be able to work on them. So hopefully soon, some of that stuff, especially the drum EQ and the note EQ. I'd like to get up to snuff with the dynamic EQ.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see the new pictures attached to those things in real use. So So what we just got hopefully whatever fixes dynamic EQ will keep it from happening to the compressor as well, right? So
yeah, so if it's fixed in one, it's going to be fixed for any of them going forward using that. So
cool. All right, you got anything, Mark?
No, I think the idea of like doing a sort of like research project into what makes the distortion what, and even putting out like a sort of paper or an article or something on that, it could be a cool idea. We could have we can talk about this more, when it's business hours, but we could have a sort of like AIX research page where we do that kind of stuff, either live in videos or just sort of like in a blog format, and say, hey, we did XYZ experiments, and this is what we found in our measurements, and this is why, AIX is the best plugin and whatever. But it's a really cool idea, and I love that kind of stuff, like getting into the real nitty-gritty sort of math and engineering behind what makes this sound, gritty, or what makes this sound like sort of characteristic the way that it does, so that we can then kind of reverse engineer it and put it in the plugins. So I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah. This guy that does the overloud stuff, way back when, he had like maybe it was for school or something, but he had this thing out, and his output was like this some pedal and a Marshall JCM 900, and the whole research paper behind it and stuff, and you could read everything about it and how he felt about things and stuff. It was really, really interesting. So yeah, I would love to have something like that.
Yeah, if I would love to do something like that. If we had a sort of thing that we were trying to investigate and sort of use that information to then build something, that'd be really fun. So I think Dave probably feels the same way. It's fun to do stuff like that. So
yeah, I'd love to get to the point where we can model stuff well enough where you make a manly Veramu that even the crazy people would like be, oh, that sounds just like the real thing, which of course they'll never do, but it'd be neat if it got that close, and then they could all argue over when we make different colors on the faceplate, whether they sound different with the different colors. That's the level I'd like to be at, because when they lose the ability to argue over anything else, that's a good place.
Yeah.
And they will still
Yeah,
argue over that.
I got a couple questions.
All right.
Well, one came up when you're talking about the distortion test and getting to the reason of how distortion is created. Would that be applicable in like some kind of synthesizer preset or something? Like if you find things that work, you can like create a synthesizer that adds different sets for different levels of distortion, or is the synthesizer totally different than what I'm thinking?
Oh no, that's yeah. I think Dave and these guys, they like those little DSP blocks, so he'd tell you, yeah. What about that, Dave? It seems like the distortion is distortion. You want to have all different types of stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just building a bank of them. That's what we're trying to do with all this stuff, anyways. Anything we come up with is hopefully something modular enough that it appears in anywhere else it can, kind of thing.
Yeah, so Sean, you should be able to take a distortion block and put it in an EQ block and an oscillator block and make whatever kind of synth sound you want eventually.
Those kinds of synths are really big, so that might be something that... my other question was with the GUI upgrades of the existing non-released plugins for the AIX site. Are there going to be any feature upgrades or functional upgrades to them as well, or is it just the graphics?
Did you want me to take that? Or? Yeah. So there are updates that are coming to the intuition stuff that we developed for the dynamic EQ, and same thing for the drum EQ and the note EQ. They're going to have basically stuff that we more well crafted for the dynamic EQ and the multiband compressor. So you'll see additional functionality as well as being more stable and using less CPU.
And for multiband gate, there should be we've already, it's not in the official version, but there's already a MIDI input, and hopefully there's going to be some MIDI outputs, and hopefully there's going to be that transient thing and probably other stuff as well.
I think it's pretty awesome.
I think we missed something.
Yeah, it's cutting out.
Oh, was that Sean's cutting out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we didn't hear all of what Sean was saying.
Where you at, man? This other guy's on Kauai where they have like coconuts tied together for phones, and we can hear him. What's your problem?
That's how the internet actually, it goes. It's a bunch of turtles sending messages to each other.
Yeah, Sean's on the civilized island, and we can't hear him.
Well, people have uncivilized stickers on their cars, so.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But that was all I had. I was just had a couple questions.
Okay.
That came to mind.
All right. Well, we've been on for a good hour, so that's good. Yeah, hopefully we can do like kind of a roundtable every week and just make this show a little bit more fun like this, because this is I got plenty to rant about, but I usually doing that during the week anyways. But yeah, if you guys don't have anything else, anybody got anything?
I'm good.
All right. Then
Looking forward to the refreshes and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so I am going to go to Times and hit the hot bar and see if they got Kahlua Pig, and then hopefully go ride my bike some. But thank you guys for being on, and everybody who tuned in. I'll see you guys next week.
Have fun.
All right. Bye-bye. Aloha and all that.